Today we're pulling back the curtain on a hidden world, one that lives on us, in us, and all around us. We're talking about microorganisms, and we're going to figure out if they're our friends, our enemies, or maybe something a lot more interesting.
So let's just jump right in with a kind of a wild thought. What if I told you that right this second, your body is basically a planet and it's home to trillions of tiny living things? I know, it sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, but it's totally real.
And yep, it's absolutely true. They're on your skin, they're in your gut, they're on the very screen you're looking at right now, and even in the air you're breathing. We're living inside this microscopic universe every single moment of our lives.
All right, so it's probably time we got properly introduced to these invisible neighbors. Who are they exactly? And where on Earth do they all come from?
Well, the official definition is pretty simple. A microorganism is just any living thing that's so small you can't see it without a microscope. You know, some are just a single cell, others have a few more, but they are all masters of staying hidden in plain sight.
And when we say they're everywhere, we mean literally everywhere. They live in the most extreme places you can possibly imagine. We're talking boiling hot springs, deep-sea vents, frozen solid glaciers, the driest deserts. They were here way before us, and they've pretty much conquered the entire planet.
Now, this microbial world is incredibly diverse, but we're going to focus on the 4 main groups you're most likely to hear about. Think of them as the main characters in our story.
First up, you got the real celebrities of the microbial world, bacteria and viruses. We hear about these guys all the time, right? And usually not in a good way. Bacteria are these single-celled powerhouses, while viruses are, well, they're even smaller and kind of weird, existing in this gray area between living and not really living.
But it's not just bacteria and viruses. We also have fungi. That includes things like yeast, and protozoa, like this little shape-shifting amoeba you can see. Each of these groups has its own unique way of life, and as we'll see, its own unique impact on our world.
Okay, let's be real. For most of us, when we hear the word microbe, we think trouble. We think germs, getting sick, food going bad. So let's start there. Let's dive into the dark side of our invisible neighbors.
One of the most common ways we run into their destructive side is right in our own kitchens. You know that fuzzy green stuff that shows up on old bread? That's a fungus. That funky smell from milk that's been left out too long? Yep, that's bacteria. It's called food spoilage, and it's all because of these tiny organisms at work.
You can actually watch this happen with a super simple experiment. Just get a slice of bread a little damp and leave it for a few days. Microscopic spores, which are floating around in the air all the time, will land on it, realize it's the perfect new home, and start growing into that fuzzy mold we all know and, well, don't love.
So, spoiling our lunch is one thing, but the damage that some of these microorganisms can do, it gets much, much more serious.
Microbes are the culprits behind countless infectious diseases that can hit just about every living thing. For us humans, viruses cause things like the common cold, while bacteria can cause diseases like tuberculosis. Animals get sick from them too, with things like rabies. And even plants can't escape, falling victim to blights and viruses that can just wipe out entire crops.
And you can imagine the economic impact of this is massive. These diseases don't just affect an individual's health, they can completely devastate our agriculture, threatening our food supply and the livelihoods of people all over the world.
Okay, so right now it sounds like microbes are just bad news. Plain and simple. But that's only half the story. Now it's time to meet the unsung heroes of the microbial world.
Check this out. It's a little bit of kitchen magic. If you take some yeast, which, remember, is a type of fungus, and mix it with some sugar and warm water, something incredible happens. The yeast starts eating the sugar and releases carbon dioxide gas, so much gas that it can actually blow up a balloon.
So what's the point? Well, that same exact process is what makes bread rise. The carbon dioxide creates thousands of tiny little air pockets in the dough, which makes it all light and fluffy. Without this heroic little fungus, we wouldn't have bread, or pizza crust, or so many of the foods we love.
And their help doesn't just stop at the bakery. Our microbial allies are absolutely essential in so many other ways. We use them to make life-saving antibiotics and vaccines. They help us ferment things to produce vinegar and alcohol. They even help us make compost for our gardens and biogas for energy. They're like these tiny, invisible factories working for us.
But maybe their most important job of all, the one that keeps our entire planet running, is this. They are nature's cleanup crew.
They break down dead plants and animals, returning all those vital nutrients back to the soil. Without them, life on Earth would pretty much just grind to a halt. They are fundamental to everything.
So, they can be villains, but they can also be heroes. What gives? How do we make sense of all this? Well, the final part of our story is about how we, the giants in this world, can learn to live with these microscopic multitudes. This table really lays it all out, doesn't it? On one side, you have all the amazing, beneficial things they do. On the other, all the harmful stuff. It's a classic tale of two sides of the same coin. The very same life processes can be a huge help or a huge problem. It just depends on the context.
So how do we manage them? How do we tip the scales in our favor? Well, the secret is all about understanding what they need to grow. See, most microbes love warmth and moisture. So if we control those two things, we control them. It's exactly why we put food in the fridge to slow them down, or why we dry things like fruit to stop them completely.
And that's really the key. This isn't a battle of good versus evil. It's all about management. It's about learning to create the right environments, encouraging the microbes we want, like the yeast in a warm bakery, and discouraging the ones we don't, like the mold in a cold, dry pantry.
In the end, microorganisms aren't really our friends or our enemies. They're just this powerful ancient force of nature, doing what they've always done. Our relationship with them isn't about winning a war. It's about becoming better architects, better gardeners. So the real question isn't whether they're good or bad. It's how do we create the kind of world that we want them to build.